I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
And this is Gaerea to Ain. I'm assuming for the big homie...
Metlcat.
Metlcat. That plain light with that thing is really epic looking. I like it.
It would look even better if it was ironed. There's all kinds of creases in it from its shipping.
Oh, yeah, that's true. You would be the only one to figure. Okay, guys, I got my Red Bull. I got my chaga. So the chaga is supposed to like cancel out the Red Bull, and then I have my cafe.
Oh my gosh.
This is Death Wish Cafe.
Yeah. Supposedly the most. I almost took that one too, but
you should.
I felt like the flavor was going to be really.
It tastes exactly like dark coffee.
Yeah, I know, but I have hazelnut over here.
It's got sugar in it.
Hazelnut coffee.
For timely topical political commentary, you can hit us up in Middle America with Vin and Sori. There are multiple ways to get your song reviewed, dear listener. My favorite is the community option, $1 to gate gets you in at Patreon. You join an alliance. You have friends and family and all that other good jazz. And they're kind of like family, I would say. I would think that these people are friends and family. And then you pull your points together and that determines what song we do. So that's one option. The other option is the Ronin option or the filthy capitalist option, which is what Sori loves to do because she's a filthy capitalist, along with the El Beluga. And 125 gets you straight to the head of the line. 125 gets you straight to the head of the line. You have to give and jump in front of everybody, just like at Disneyland. You do that 3 times, you get down back to the $75 rate. Metlcat, I've seen his name.
Oh yeah, he's
Is he at 75?
Well,
okay.
you know, I should check because of what happened to the last big homie we did last night. I should check to make sure that he is.
Yeah, and also we're coming to the end of the year. I mean, the end of the month. So Patreon starts doing their deductions. So make sure that, because a lot of times when you subscribe to things, you forget to withdraw it if you're going to withdraw it. Make sure you do that before they start pulling. Now, guys, if it does pull and you come back to Sori a couple days later and say, hey, I meant to cancel, but I didn't, you don't need to do a screenshot, any of that jazz. She'll take care of you. Gotta make sure.
It does take a couple days for the return to get back to you, though, so
yeah,
just keep that in mind as well.
Yep. Obviously, don't want you to leave. I'm not telling anybody to leave, but it just every month we want to do that. Make sure that folks don't get taken by surprise. Okay, especially in this day and age. Right. All right, so now we're listening to Gaerea.
He's good. Yep.
Okay, so we're listening to Gaerea. Is my attempt at pronouncing, and the name is To the Ain. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I guess it's
To Ain. I'm assuming that's like Ain self, like that.
All right, ready?
Seasons of Mist is a band. I think we've done a song or two of those guys.
That's super beautiful right there.
Limbo is about liberation. As the Unsettling Whispers album was about self-harm, being trapped inside a world we do not accept as ours even though we are its architects, and the ultimate desire of suicide as the last resort, Limbo takes off from where we thought Unsettling Whispers ended its role. Even though it might not appear the musical topic is not connected to all of this, it couldn't be farther from the truth. While the previous album clearly expresses music for an inner self-trapped being, Limbo opens the window, shines light upon this rotten puppet, and gives it a glimpse of liberation and a chance for salvation. Music is a concept. To Ain is real.
Got a little Magua type look to him. I think I'm going to enjoy this band. This is black metal. behemoth for all.
Wow. my gosh. Wow.
Ooh.
That's crazy.
Black metal, man, I don't know. Like, it's just my favorite genre. And these guys, so Magua is probably my favorite black metal band. But these guys, what I love about it is, like, black metal to me has been the genre that's grown the most. Remember we did the Darwin Week where we looked at the evolution of a band?
Yep.
And how a band evolved? Like, black metal to me is the most evolved subgenre of metal. They're just, when you compare, like, Mayhem, the early Freezing Moon stuff, to something like this, it's like, and it's cool because it's not, it's obviously the production value and all that, but, you know, there are, like, symphonic black metal bands and things like that, like, take the production, like, to a completely, like, almost Broadway type level, which is fine, but, like, what these guys are doing, what Maguire's doing, and the other thing is, like, they're not, especially that guitarist, man, I was, like, zeroed in on that guitarist because that dude is not in a box at all. Like, he stayed in a certain range as far as notes and progressions went, but as far as he put in so many different takes and styles and techniques in the song that, like some of it, I was like, man, this guy's just freestyling. But it works so well for the entirety of the song. I just love guitarists and obviously musicians as a whole, but just guitarists who are like, they're not confined to whatever. Like, they're different. And some of the stuff, like, you won't notice unless you're a guitarist or appreciate as much, whatever, but man.
Yeah, for me,
that guitarist was
I'm not usually
crazy.
a fan of this style of music.
You're not a big black metal person.
No, not at all. In some cases, I feel confused, and I'm like, how in the world does anybody enjoy this? And secondly, in what situation besides you're on the brink of suicide would you listen to this music? But this one was next level to me. I don't know if it's that I'm growing a broader palette for this type of music, or if this song is just particularly great. But I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And I do think that, first of all, I was like, oh, it's a whole band of brothers, but it's not. They painted their arms dark.
Oh, you thought that they were black?
Yeah.
Did you hear the guy's accent? They're like
no,
Swedish.
You always say that. You're like, oh, they had an accent. I can't really.
Play it again when he starts talking at the beginning.
Oh, yeah, at the beginning, but yeah, like, but we might have, you know, the big homie talking ours. That doesn't mean we have accents, just because we picked him because he has a good voice.
If we use our bassist, or...
No, I thought we were possibly...
Who?
Steven.
Oh, yeah. Yo, Steven, Armore, hit me up, bro. We need you for something real quick for the song. If you're willing, of course. We can compensate you very handsomely. Yeah, go ahead.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we picked him because he has that type of voice. So, I mean, how do I know if these people aren't doing the very self-same thing?
Well, self-same. Very good. Good word. I see what you're saying. I really liked, actually.
Oh my word, it was so freaking good.
Very interesting to me. Like,
I didn't hear what he said at the beginning.
Like when he talked about the whole record, he's basically saying that the previous record was about a guy basically trapped in himself, and it was all nihilistic and self-destruction, self-harm. Whereas this record was more like looking into it and having different, like a more broader understanding of how to deal with that type of thing.
Oh, okay.
He also mentioned like salvation and something.
Music is a concept.
To Wayne is real.
To what? To Wayne?
To Ayin is real.
What does Ayin mean?
Ayin. Well, Ayin is interesting because it depends on how you use it. Like the raw, it's based in Hebrew. It's the Kabbalah stuff, Nostradamus, Kabbalah, whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of like a Jewish mysticism type of thing. But Ayin, the original Hebrew word, if you just leave it by itself, it pretty much means nothingness or the negation. So when you say Ein Sof, one way to translate Ein Sof would be the limitless light, right? So like there's no limit to the light. So Sof means light. So when you talk, or Ein Sof can also mean the endless one, speaking specifically about God. So in Kabbalah, there's this idea, and it's New Testament kind of picks up on it. So in Kabbalah, the idea is that God in his prime essence is completely transcendent and unknowable. And so in order for God, one, to even create something, and two, for him to relate to his sentient created beings, he has to basically emanate himself in a way, in a lower way that's inconceivable to his created beings, or even to create in the first place, because he's transcendent. So the Ein Sof is God in his prime without those emanations. So you're getting really God as God, which kind of explains in the Old Testament you hear that no man can see God, but at the same time you have Abraham talking to God in Genesis 15, 16, 9, that type of thing. God walking in the garden with Adam and Eve. God showing up to Moses, things like that. God showing up to Moses in Exodus 3, in the burning bush. But then at the same time it says no man can see God. And so there was this whole and then of course John chapter 1 where it says no one has seen God but but no man has seen God but the only begotten God, the monogenes theos, he has made him known to us, talking about Jesus. So when John says no one has seen God, but then there's all these Old Testament passages where people it's like, what's going on there? And what John is saying is
contradiction in the Bible. Let's not believe it.
Right. John is saying it's basically a Kabbalistic construction of the Old Testament, which is namely when John says no one has seen God, they mean the Ein Sof, in God in his prime essence. You've only seen the emanations or the manifestations of God. Right, so that's how you have God walk in the cool of the day or whatever, and then so he's saying that Jesus is the combination of the transcendence of the Ein Sof with the immanence of being a human being joined together at Christmas, right? So but if you just leave it as Ein by itself, it can mean nothingness, which in certain, we were talking to our Hindu friend a couple of days ago, and within certain denominations of Hinduism, the goal is nirvana, which is essentially, nothingness, because they believe that the ultimate, divine being is impersonal, and essentially you're going back to that impersonality, and that's nirvana for certain denominations of Hinduism. Obviously, that's not his. Oh,
I was like, well, I'm very confused.
Yeah, he's a personalist. He's not an impersonalist. Okay. Obviously, the Hare Krishna guys
God sounds very.
The Hare Krishna guys are extremely. They're extreme personalists, but then you have the other guys who are impersonalists who nirvana is their goal. So it's really interesting because he, when he talks about going back to the Ein. Or let me get my lyrics back up here. So when he talks about going to the Ein, it looks like he's talking about some form of nothingness to some degree, because, and I may be being too pedantic about it, because I'm like, oh, he didn't put self there. So if you just leave Ein by itself, it's just a pure negation.
Oh, I see.
Right?
Okay.
So if you put Soph by it, then you have the limitless one or the limitless light, but that's still a negation. You're saying there's no limit to X, Y, Z. So when he talks about, the sound of silence relieves me, consumes me, inflicting chaos to Ein.
Isn't that interesting?
So, see the sound of silence there, like all that stuff. So he's trying to get to the Ein to nothingness, maybe, so that he can not have to deal with all the chaos or whatever of life, is how I interpreted that.
Oh my gosh, okay, that's so funny, because when I read it, I was confused, because I was thinking, so the sound of silence relieves him, so I felt like, okay, when he's in quiet silence, like, it's relieving to him.
Right.
And then, whoops, I just lost my place. Okay, and then it said, consumes me, and then inflicting chaos, so I thought all of that was in that moment. So, like, the silence consumes him, like it brings him that peace and that good, but then it's inflicting chaos, because like sometimes, well, maybe this doesn't happen to everybody, but for me, like if I get into the quiet, I'm like, oh, finally I have some silence, and I like really enjoy. He's been the one sleeping lately, and I've been the one with insomnia, so I'm like up for hours and hours and hours while he's asleep. It's the weirdest thing, because I'm like, There's no children to tend to except for when the baby wakes up. But like sometimes it's like such a great feeling to be in that silence, but then sometimes that silence turns into chaos because of my own thoughts.
Yeah, no, yeah, it could.
Consumes me, inflicting chaos. Like it's like it inflicts him, you know.
To Ayn, nothing he believes is real as I keep sliding back to life. So I don't know who the he is there. If the he is the Ayn, that's interesting. You're saying that nothing that God believes is real, which is interesting, because if you look at some forms of Gnosticism, the Yahweh is a demiurge who, you know, in some of the Gnostic literature is not very intelligent.
Look, it's mastered at demigod recordings. I like literally saw that right when you
demigod.
said
There you go. There you go. So that's some Gnosticism, which Kabbalah and Gnosticism can kind of go very well because of the whole concept of emanations. But so in Gnosticism, you know, Yahweh is a demiurge who not very intelligent because he created matter, and in certain denominations of Gnosticism, matter was evil.
Right.
You know, the rest of you see the picture of Jesus on the cross, and then there's a guy in a hoodie laughing at him, and it's actually the real Jesus laughing at everybody who believes that God would actually take on flesh, blah, blah, blah. So if he's saying nothing he believes is real, maybe he's talking about the demiurge there. I thought that was very, very interesting. But then again, it seems that there was another character that they were following, because of the intro it said that. It seemed like in the intro there was like a character that everybody was like kind of following around in the 2018 record, you know, Unsettling Whispers. So I don't know if like when he says he, if he's talking about God, or if he's saying he, if he's talking about the previous character in the other record that they did. You know, you'd have to kind of be an aficionado of the band to know, like, what the he actually is there.
Well, so maybe Metlcat can let us know.
Yeah, Metlcat, let us know who the he is there.
I've been checking the comment sections. I'm not amazing at doing this, but sometimes when I realize it's the person who actually requested the song and got it in our lineup, I pin their comment. Sometimes YouTube doesn't let me pin comments, so I don't know what the problem is. But
yeah, it's the app is
kind of finicky.
Yeah. And if you look at the second song, it says, followed by dejection, the cartridge I wore, the golden one was left behind, perverse I secretly am. God knew it better, my scars could attest, my dispassionate pleasure, ripping the skin from bone. Jeez. So there he explicitly mentions God. And he said the torment of flesh. You know, that goes to your matter thing. Right, the Gnosticism. The shell that encloses. Yeah. As heavy as a stone my heart must endure, something like that. Right. Because from a biblical Christian worldview, the body is not just a temporary shell that that's housing, you know, a lot of religions, your body is just basically a vehicle that your true self kind of drives around in, but it's not really you. And then the goal is to be the spiritual you, the person inside the car driving the car. And then when you die, you finally are able to get out of the car because the shell is basically, you're trapped in it. Right? So like some of the Epicurean scholars had the same kind of thing. So when you see Paul in Acts 17 and he talks about a bodily resurrection, everybody's laughing at him because their perspective is, well, the body is a shell that you're trying to get out of. And it's a trap, so why are you talking about like an eternal state of being trapped in a physical body, which is obviously what Christianity teaches. Well, I think that because your soul is eternal and your spirit is eternal and your body is not, your body is going to be renewed to make it so it will last, you know? So I think that sometimes it's hard to kind of pull all the parts of yourself together into like a singular being, and so then you kind of have that separation, so you feel like, I'm just, this body is not like, you know. Or the other thing too, I think that as you age, of course, you know, we're mid-30s, but I'm sure it just gets more so, but like as you're aging, you know, people will say, I'm young at heart, or you know, stuff like that, because inwardly, I think that certain types of sins in your life or bitterness or things like that can like kind of age you inwardly. But if you don't have those things, then you're kind of like young at heart.
and your body is aging, that's like another thing that kind of like makes you feel separated from your body. Or like, well, inside I'm like, I think that was the washing machine breaking. This is like the 5th time. Anyway, so you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like that kind of makes that separation, so then you can feel like, yeah, like the body is nothing, but it's going to get renewed.
Yeah. No, and these guys are from Portugal, if anybody. I thought they were from Sweden.
Your Death Wish coffee is disgusting.
Like everybody else. I thought they were from Sweden like everybody else, but... yeah. It's just very, 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 very interesting stuff.
Oh my gosh. Then there was that line that both of us were like, yo, at the end.
Yeah, the misanthropic line right there. I hate mankind, for I am one of the best of them, and I know how bad I am.
Yeah.
I'm going to send this review to Peter. He's our drummer. Shout out to the homie. It's been a running theme talking about original sin on this channel. But like the misanthropic thing where you hate all mankind does carry a certain type of arrogance in it. Because it's like, who are you to sit in judgment of mankind to hate them?
Yeah.
So you're sitting in judgment of it, and I love the way that he articulated it. Mm-hmm. I'm one of the best, and I know how bad I am.
Yeah.
I think that is simultaneously delusional and open-eyed at the same time.
What do you mean delusional?
Because how does he know he's one of the best of mankind?
Because you can look at the news and the other things that other people are doing. You're like, I'm not doing that.
That's why I'm saying it's delusional. Because it's like you're comparing yourself to the worst to say that you're the best. There are very few people that will tell you I am the worst of all mankind. Like we've known like child molesters who think that they're good people and that they're being victimized. But there's always somebody that they can point to and say, well, I'm not as bad as that guy. He raped 9 kids. I only looked at child porn. So he's looking at himself in comparison to that guy. You can be a serial killer. You can be a guy who killed somebody in cold blood. There's like the world's most notorious serial killer died yesterday or something like that. So you can look at that guy and say, well, I'm not a serial killer. You see what I'm saying? So it's delusional for you to compare yourself to the worst of humanity and then say that you're the best. Like if you were to...
This is one of the best.
It doesn't matter.
I see what you're saying.
That's ridiculous.
But I'm still...
Like for example, like if you're well, that's because you're delusional too. But like if you're like I'm a basketball player, right? Like so if I'm playing around here, I could say I'm one of the best basketball players in the world.
Yeah.
That's a ridiculous thing to say. No, I'm one of the best players around this silly neighborhood with amateurs.
No, I don't think it's the same. That's not the same.
Then get on a court with a bunch of NBA guys and say I'm one of the best. It's ridiculous.
That's not the same.
It's delusional.
Like, you've got certain standards. Like, okay, there are certain things that people know inwardly that you should do and you shouldn't do. Like, there's some stuff that people want to get vague about, but like, really, it depends on culture, I guess.
Well, everybody
too.
gets
because
everybody
in this
gets
culture,
vague
you're not supposed to steal, but there are certain cultures where stealing is praised unless you're caught. That's the only thing that's wrong about it is when you get caught.
Yeah, but I still think even those cultures know that stealing
that taking
is bad.
itself is bad.
Yeah, that's why they create praise over it. So
maybe you're right. Okay, well then that's to my point then. I feel like that you should be able to tell you're one of the best of them because you're not murdering anybody, you're not stealing, you're not assaulting anybody, you're taking care of your kids.
But that's something that is like if I for example again the basketball analogy, if I'm the guy in the neighborhood and I'm the best guy in the neighborhood, it would be ridiculous for me to say because I'm the best guy in this neighborhood that I'm one of the best basketball players in the world. People would say that guy's delusional. Because put him on a court with the 3rd string on the LA Lakers and see how you do. It would be delusional for me to say I'm one of the best basketball players in the world because I'm comparing myself to other terrible basketball players and I'm saying I'm the best of the worst. So when you talk about like I'm a good person,
I see what you're saying.
You're saying, you're a good person. It's like no, you're the best.
One of the best.
There's 8 billion people on the planet, and you know that you're one of the best. That's crazy to me. That's a crazy statement to me. Like, I don't even think you need to have Christian theology about original sin to say that's a delusional statement. Like,
I disagree
I think
with
that's
you.
crazy.
I disagree
crazy
with
to me.
you. Because people have standards of what they think is right and what they think is wrong. Whether those standards come from themselves, or they come from a religion, or they come from their
So if
parents.
a child molester says, hey, my standard is as long as you're looking at child porn and you're not actually engaging in the act, then you're a good person. So
No,
from your
because the
perspective,
majority would say that guy is definitely delusional. But like, what
so
is...
because the majority opinion says it,
No,
then it
I'm
becomes
just
right that he's
no.
delusional?
I'm saying that people have standards within themselves.
Well,
so
that's
that
their
guy-
standard.
Yes, but
So then he's not delusional.
No, he is. He's crazy
On what
He's
basis
crazy.
are you saying that? How are you saying
because he's hurting somebody else.
that? So, if you don't give to charity, you're hurting somebody else. How many people
No,
give to
that's
charity?
different. That's different.
What do you mean it's different? No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
If it was your kid, would you say it was different? Your kid was starving on the street and somebody walked right by him. You'd say, oh, that's different. He's not hurting my kid. You are.
No. That is not the same thing.
You don't believe in sins of omission? You don't think those are sins?
No, I think that that is a thing, but I don't think it's the same thing. I think that, if you go through Walmart and they ask you if you want to give $1 to St. Jude and you say no, that's not the same as taking food out of a child's mouth.
Yeah, I'd say you're a bad person. If you can,
I say you're a good person if you give it.
No, you're just doing what you're supposed to do. Like the cop, like listen, when you're driving, I say this all the time, like when you're driving, right? Have you ever been pulled over by a police officer and the cop jumps out and says, I just want to thank you. The speed limit's at 75 and you're driving 75 and I just want to thank you for that. Has that ever happened to you?
Yes, actually.
It's never happened to you.
No, it's never happened.
Well, that's because you're supposed to drive 75. You're not a hero because you're driving 75 into 75.
I always feel really good when I give those things. Like you're saying, that's delusional to feel like...
Yeah, you're just doing what you're supposed to do. I don't think that
So
that's...
you don't feel good about it when you do it?
I don't feel any different from giving than driving 75 miles an hour. You're just doing what you're supposed to do. Like, for example, if my kid was hungry, if he said, Dad, I'm hungry, and I pull into Burger King and I get him a burger,
Yeah.
do I feel especially good about it? Like, no. Like,
I do. I do feel good
don't.
about it.
I'm
I'm very
his dad.
happy that I'm able to give them that little...
Well, I'm happy that he's enjoying it, but I don't say, oh, I'm such a great person because I got my son a burger when he was hungry.
Oh, yeah. No.
No, it's my so if you see somebody that's hungry or whatever, or in trouble, or cancer, St. Jude is cancer, and you have it, and you give it, like that's not a big, like, you did what you're supposed to do. If you're taking the Bible,
if everybody had that mindset,
if you're taking the Bible seriously,
we'd be in a much better place.
if you're taking the Bible seriously, you just do what you're supposed to do. That doesn't make you a good person any more than driving 75 on the highway makes you a good motorist. But the only reason people pat themselves on the back is because so few people do the basic things of what we're supposed to do.
Well, yeah, because that's kind of what's in my head.
That creates that's what I'm saying is delusional. Like people think, oh, I gave to this, I did this, I did this. They think that it's some big thing. It's not a big thing. Like that's what you're supposed to do.
Like last night when I ordered the pizza for the kids.
Yeah.
And the guy, I was like, well, can I just add a tip on right now? And he said, yeah. And then, so, average tip is 20%. That's what they say. If you want to give a decent tip, it's 20%. Like, I don't think that 20% is like, wow. But I said, yeah, just do 20%. And then I just said, well, oh my gosh, because he was like trying to get like the exact number for the 20%.
Yeah.
I said, my gosh, just make it easy for yourself. And I just rounded it up to the nearest 5.
Right.
And then he was like, you know what? I'm going to give you a discount on your pizza. Because he said, I really appreciate it when people tip the drivers. And most people don't tip the drivers good. Because, like, the business themselves, they do, like, you're already paying for your pizza. Then you're paying a delivery charge, which doesn't go to the driver.
Yeah.
So the driver's going to get screwed because the person's like, well, there's a delivery charge. That's a tip.
Yep.
So... Anyway, but that's one of those things where I was like...
So now he's got you in the top 1% of humanity.
Hey!
But you're not.
You're right. It's so true.
We just did what you're supposed to do. It's a freaking pandemic. Businesses are in peril. And you're a hero because you rounded up $15 instead of $14.50. But that's how horrible we all are. That when you do something as basic as that, all of a sudden you're a superhero. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's completely delusional to say that you're one of the best of mankind. Like, we did for somebody last year, and it you know, it put them in a good situation or whatever. And it wasn't us, it was our entire community, and we're talking, they're like, oh, thank you, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you still talking? That was a year ago. Like, it's ridiculous.
Listen to that washing machine. I hope it's not ripping our sheets.
I know. This is how rich we are, ladies and gentlemen. We got a washing machine that's either completely quits or says, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you.
I'm going to record that so I can add it in.
We're going to hold for one moment to your regularly scheduled program. Yeah.
There it is for you.
And that washing machine could say, hey, I'm one of the best washing machines of all time. Look at how I clean these clothes. Meanwhile, it's clunking up all over the place. But all he knows is he's cleaning the clothes. It's like, well, you're a washing machine.
Now you're delusional.
That's what
washing machines don't think.
That's what you're supposed to do. You're a washing machine.
I get it.
So
I get it.
It's just completely delusional to me.
It's actually kind of.
I told you were delusional.
It's worse.
Yeah. But he thinks he's awesome because he's producing clean clothes. That's just the minimum. Look at all the bullshit that had to happen to get there. That's how most of us are. Most of us are like that broken washing machine. All of us are. You're just delusional. You're just a delusional washing machine. What were you saying? You look terrified. What's wrong with you?
Because I'm thinking about the stupid washing. I'm like, if that ruined our stuff, and if it's that loud, it's not going to do more loads.
So we're having this wonderful existential conversation, and we're back to the real world.
Okay, and the facts are...
So I just thought that was a brilliant line.
It is a brilliant line.
Very honest.
It is.
Very self-aware and very delusional at the same time, and I love that type of irony because that type of contradiction is what it means to be human. It's the image of God in him dealing with the son of Adam part.
Brokenness, yeah.
Going together, and his. Yeah. This is
what is man, a miserable pile of secrets?
That's another good line.
Yeah, I know. But that actually scared me.
Well, and you kind of see this played out in the garden, where the first thing that they do when they sin is immediately start creating that secrecy, right? Because you get the. You know, that's the point of sowing the fig leaves or whatever it is.
And hiding. They hid.
Yeah, so the secrecy is a direct result of sin. But
do you picture them hiding? Do you picture them hiding in the same spot or different spots?
Well, they were in the same spot.
How do you know?
Because as soon as Adam starts talking, he starts talking.
No, I mean behind the same tree or behind the same bush.
I think they did.
You think they were together?
Yeah. Because I think that's part of human nature, that when you're outside or you did something wrong in the presence of God, like you want other people around you,
like the angels,
even though you resent them. Like we've seen that play out in the real world, right? So, gangbangers, whatever you want to call it, right? People, So that line was just crazy to me. I hate mankind. I'm one of the best of them. I know how bad I am. That just sums up so many of the conversations, I've had. Is just, and obviously when I say delusional, I'm saying this presupposing a Christian worldview, right? Because a Christian worldview says you're not a superhero for giving to the poor. Or Jesus has that parable where the master says, "Hey, good job, guys," and the servants respond by saying, "We were just doing our duty." But when you don't look at everybody as literally your family member, you pat yourself on the back for stuff that you would never for somebody who you actually believe is your family member. Like, you're up all night with the baby and all that, and you're making formula and all that. Like, nobody shows up and goes, "Oh my gosh, you're like a singularly amazing person."
Well, somebody should.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I've got the text messages to prove it. But that's because I'm a broken washing machine talking to another one. So I'm like, holy moly. Look, she produced that shirt without any whatever. So, and so then the question is, okay, let's say that that's true. Let's say that this guy is one of the best of humanity, the best that humanity has to offer, and he knows how bad he is. So then all you have left is hating mankind. So the Christian response to that is actually no.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's a way to redeem mankind. So if mankind is irredeemable, then of course you should hate him or her, right? But if there is a way that mankind can be redeemed and can be reoriented so as to be his or her true self, because that's the other thing, and I've done a basically not very good job at this, but when you talk about original sin, so like in the Christian world, you have two concepts. You have the image of God and original sin. So image of God says that you're a representative of God on the earth, and you're infinitely valuable based on that. Has nothing to do with what you've done or what you can contribute to society. Mm-hmm. That's good.
Or what you haven't done.
Right.
You didn't give to St. Jude.
Right. So you're valuable, infinitely valuable because of who and what you are in relationship to God. Mm-hmm. Original sin says, because of our sinful nature, the image, our job at representing God is not done very well. So we walk by the homeless person when God would have us help. We're short with people. We're impatient. Yada yada yada. So we're not representing God accurately. Mm-hmm. But what's interesting is, from a Christian worldview, your native self, your true self, is not a sinner. Your true self is an image bearer of God, because the original prototypical humans were image bearers of God who were to represent God perfectly. And so when you talk about original sin, and when you tell, this is a conversation I have with the boys all the time. I'm like, I'm just telling you to be who you actually are. So when somebody's sinning or whatever, they are not being what and who they actually are. This is an infection. This is the same thing as somebody's got corona and they start sneezing all over the place. Mm-hmm. And you give them medicine, and the reason is because the sickness, the virus, is an intruder, and it's not who the person actually is. A person is not a sneezing person with a giant headache. They're a healthy person, and then the virus comes in as an intruder. So if we can excise the virus and get them back to who they really are, then great. And that's the message, right? The message is, you are an image bearer of God. You're a representative of God on the earth. Sin has come in and made it so that you're a very, very poor reflection of God. Mm-hmm. Jesus shows up as one of us because is the perfect image of God. And then he pays the price for all the ways in which we didn't image God properly. Mm-hmm. And then he rises from the dead and creates a new humanity that now there's millions of us that in the eternal state are going to be able to image God perfectly. Mm-hmm. So that's the entire story: is image, broken image, perfect image, bunch of little perfect images. That's the gospel, the story of the world, history, whatever you want to talk about. Mm-hmm. But if you don't have that concept, that you're in the middle of that kind of story and understand where you are in history in relation to getting there as a human family, then you're going to look at humanity and go, man, screw this, especially the last century. I'm watching all these documentaries about World War II. Holy moly. This was the pinnacle of our technological advancements and our education and our scientific endeavors. Subhanallah, we're about 20, 30 years from putting a man on the moon, and we fucking slaughtered 400 million of our own people. And I was listening to, and it was so interesting, because I was listening to Americans on D-Day, and I was also listening to Germans on D-Day. They're recounting of the, and so it's like they literally both sounded exactly the same. I was afraid, I was scared, I was afraid, I was scared. We saw the Americans, we were scared. We saw the Germans, we were scared. You had these, and they were 19, 22. One guy was 21 years old. They were calling him Grandpa because everybody else is 18, 19. So we put all these kids in this horrific situation and had them kill each other. The guy's German, he's fighting, he's blah, blah, blah. Yeah, he's that horrible German kid. Yeah, he's a human being, period, right? It's like, if you listen to these stories and you see what these kids had to deal with and what they had to, the situations that were out of their control, that put them on that beach, that made them do that to each other, and you could tell, these guys 70, 80 years old, and they were still affected by it. Mm-hmm. And they were affected by their friends dying, and they were affected by the fact that they had to kill people.
Yeah.
And they were talking about, like, one of the guys, he had jumped a bunker and he had shot a guy. The German dude put his hands up and he just blew him away. And he was like, what was I supposed to do? My friend's brains were on my jacket. What would you do? But of course, you could tell that he was upset at himself for doing that to that guy. And you say, you all these people that judge these people in these situations, and I get it, there's got to be some sort of accountability, but I'm like, none of us knows what that's like to have that happen to in that situation. So yeah, I mean, if you just look at human history, you don't have to look at human history. Just look at last century. And you can say, for all of our, brilliance and all the things that human beings can, I was, watching a documentary in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and I get it, man, I get it, I understand, but at the same time, it's like, when you listen to the stories of these people and what happened to them, you can definitely hate human beings, but it just depends on what kind of story you're living in. Mm-hmm. Everybody's living in some sort of story, and there's a beginning, middle, and end. Mm-hmm. And if you're in a story that we're just like floating around, and this is not a criticism, I'm just saying it's an observation. If you're in a story that you're just floating around and there's no reason for you to be here, and there's no reason for you to be here other than what you make up for yourself, like, I get it. But it's very hard not to become a misanthropic person, because how can you have any confidence that we're going to improve as a species?
Yeah.
Right? So, and then you have some Christians, Nietzsche made a really interesting observation where he said Christianity is basically a nihilistic religion, because the form of Christianity that he was introduced to was basically everything on the earth doesn't matter. What's really important is what happens, in the afterlife. Mm-hmm. So he's saying, how is that not a form of nihilism? Because you're saying whatever happens in this world is inconsequential, just like your atheist friend is saying. And he's right. And that's what I love about post-millennialism, because it's a very this world oriented view of the world and history, and it puts you know exactly where you are in the timeline and where the story's going. You kind of have the cheat code. But if you don't, you end up writing songs like this, and that's why it's so beautiful, because all of us know something is wrong. Mm-hmm. And if you know that something is wrong, that means that there is a standard of right. Mm-hmm. Or if you say things are not as they should be, that means you're assuming that there is a should be. Mm-hmm. There's a form of existence that it should be. Yeah. And we're not living in it. And how do we get from A to B? And who set up that standard of goodness in the first place, which has a bunch of existential.
But it's interesting because what we were talking about before about people like being delusional about their own goodness.
Right.
If you're living, it works together with that mindset too. You know what I mean? Like, if you're thinking that you're a good person, then you don't really realize that there's a whole lot of change that needs to happen. Because if you yourself are good, and there's a whole, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I'll never need to change, because there's always somebody I can point to.
Yeah. It's so funny. So, like, I know you don't say these things out loud. I don't have a problem saying them out loud because I don't feel like I'm tooting my own horn, especially now after we just had that conversation. So there's obviously homeless people that I drive past every time that I go out. Well, I don't know definitively that they're homeless, but they're holding up signs. And
they're not in a good situation.
They're needing help.
Yeah.
So, I was talking to Vinny, and I was like, because the Bible says you're supposed to give, if people ask for help, you're supposed to help them and whatnot. So I said, all right, well, what about everybody that's holding a sign? Are we supposed to give to everybody that's holding a sign? And he said, yeah, why not? And I'm like, he's like, if you have it, do it. Well, I never have cash on me, but... So I said, the kids have been bringing it up for a while. They've been asking, like, whenever they see a homeless person, they'll say
Sayla's
something.
really big on it. She'll be like, why didn't you?
Sayla, every single time. Johan, really, it's our two youngest ones. Sayla and Johan are the ones that really bring it up the most. Pretty much every time that they see somebody, they bring it up.
Yeah.
It's funny because...
That's the same, it's both of them.
Yeah. The oldest, our oldest... He's like the most about like planning for his future and getting his own money and capitalism and stuff. Yeah. But he's the one that's given the most of his own money. Like, they all have opportunities to make money. And like the two youngest are like, we should give, but what they mean is you and me should give.
Right.
So I'm actually, when we were having this conversation about like what is something like we should Like, that's just the base level of what we should be doing. It's not some big giant hurrah if you give to St. Jude or you pass some money out to somebody holding a sign. So if that's true, then I think I haven't been doing a good job at teaching them, because I don't even think it comes into their minds when they get their money to set some aside for a situation like that. Any of them. I mean, our oldest one did it on his own.
Yeah.
But past that, Johan did it one time at the store with his own money.
Yeah, I think it's extremely interesting because Dorian despises the less fortunate.
I know. You know what's funny though? He would never pass it to somebody holding a sign. But St. Jude, that's different to him. Right. So I think he, you know what I mean? Like he's drawn the line.
Right. Yeah.
He won't even. I think he despises the people holding the sign.
100%.
But
100%.
But he's.
Yeah.
It's just interesting how like they all process it. But for me in this discussion, I'm like, okay, I need to do better about kind of somehow teaching them, like without saying, because like when we were growing up, it was required that you give 10% of everything that you made to church.
Yeah, Dorian setting that aside is not something that he was taught to do directly.
Right.
So like, we have those man studies or whatever, and biblically what it means to be a man, but that's not something we touched on directly. That's something that came directly, that's just him and God type of thing. But I think the best way to teach is so he got that by osmosis, watching us. And I just think that, if we have more incidents, like, because...
I don't know, though. I mean, how often does he see what we do?
Well, I mean, he's seen a lot from... He's seen... I mean, he knows that we support those kids and things like that, right? And that happens,
they all know that, yeah.
That happens on a monthly basis, type of... So, like, he's like, oh, okay. You know what I'm saying?
That's something he might be conscious of,
Yeah. And I just think the kids need to see it more, because, we
those kids, we do Compassion International because they, from what the research we did, they give the most to the kids from the money that you give to them.
Yeah. So we've got a couple of kids and they're so yeah, I mean, yeah, I just think it's more of just demonstrating it, to them and having them see us do it and all that. I think that'll catch on. But it's just a very, very interesting song. Just lyrically, sonically, I just really enjoyed the song. It was very challenging. Like, I'm challenged by the song, you know what I mean? And like, it's challenged us, right? Like, our giving has to increase, right? Like, you got to do more. But it's not a guilt thing. It's just understanding how God created the world to be. And
it's funny too because like, whenever I see. I'd see somebody with a sign. It's always like this awkward when you're driving by. Like, do I make eye contact? Do I make it like I'm busy? Do I move in the other lane? Like all these things, like gymnastics that I didn't have cash in the car. But right. The thing is, like, you can make it so you have cash. Like if we're doing something where we need cash, I make sure that we have cash. If I buy something off Facebook, I make sure I have cash. So like, it was one of those things where it was like, how hard is it to make a run to the bank and then put that in there? You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not giving like $100 every single time. Like, it's a smaller amount. But even if it was just like, let's say we were financially not doing well, like, I think that even giving $1 or less than, like, whatever we could do,
whatever
it's still like, it's still doing something.
Yeah. Yeah, and
and it's not up to me what the person is doing with that money. Like, I remember, growing up hearing people say a lot, like, well, don't give the person cash because you don't know what they're going to do with that cash and blah, blah, blah. Like, I can't get out of my car and follow that person around and make sure that they take that money and actually do something beneficial for their themselves with it. Mm-hmm. But that's not, biblically, is not required of me to do that. But biblically, you're right, we should be giving.
Yeah, and obviously...
Okay, wait, hold on. But what I was going to say, I went on this big rabbit trail on that, but what I was going to say is, it like makes me emotional because like there was all that awkwardness, like where do I put my car? Do I look? Do I not look? Do I, you know what I mean? And then the kids would keep asking like, and kids will push you on. Well, our kids do. They're like, well, why didn't you give money to that person? And I'm like, well, you know, basically, I just, you know, I give when I feel like God is telling me to give. And they're like, you could tell by this extended stare that they do at you that they're like, And then I'm like, plus I don't have any cash on me. They're like, oh, okay. But just realizing, like, now, like, I'm looking for them. I'm like, oh, shoot, that person's gonna sign, but they're on the opposite side, so I'm not gonna be able to get to them, you know what I mean? But, like, when I open up my, like, now I can pull my car right up beside them and open up my window and tell them God bless, and, you know, I feel so much better. Like, I know it's not about me, but, like, but kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like, moving to the other lane was super awkward, and not making eye contact was super awkward.
Well, we have this discussion that a good person is good because what makes them happy is the happiness of other people. Mm-hmm. So a good person isn't good because...
Oh, so good. See, I'm good.
Yeah, a good person isn't good because they have no self-interest. A good person is good because their self-interest is in the happiness of other people. Mm-hmm. And that's why a good person is good and why a bad person. When a person is selfish, what you're saying is your self-interest trumps the well-being and the good of other people. So you're selfish, right? Mm-hmm. You're self-oriented because that's what makes you happy. There's nothing wrong with the desire to be happy. There's something in it for you. And Jesus was like that. Hey, you want to be... And you know, it's really... That's one of the things. If you want to not live in a mundane world, if every day's in it... For me, like, I remember one time... We were driving because, you know, I have a very specific type of worldview. We were driving, going to 7-Eleven or something like that. Something happened, and I said, "Well, God's got there's a reason I'm at this 7-Eleven." And you were like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, there's you know, it's like, oh, it's a regular 7-Eleven trip." But like every moment to me is like
really that conversation happened.
Yeah,
weird because I don't usually think that. I thought that about when you said like, you know, God is in every the toothpaste. That I was like, what?
Yeah.
But the 7-Eleven or. You know, all that stuff makes sense to me. I don't know why I said that night. But anyway, carry on.
But yeah, like, you know, the light. If you believe yourself to be in a story, like an actual meta narrative, that was big in certain Christian circles about 7 years ago. Was the whole concept of meta narrative. You know, this thing where it's a movie where Will Ferrell figures out that he's in a movie. He figures out that he's in a movie. That
it's like lucid dreaming, but in real life.
Yeah, and that's kind of, you know, when I'm on, that's the view of the world that you have, and it's impossible for there to be any mundane moment then, because everything is pregnant with purpose. So, but here he's in a mundane world and stuff is difficult and mankind, and then he's by himself, and there you go, and with our arms wide open, we'll fall into the ain. And of course, I'd say, inshallah, you fall into. Right, because it's a double. It can mean you fall into nothingness, or you fall into limitless light, and you find yourself. And he said at the album, he said, you know, some of this is about, you know, that trauma or whatever, but he also said it could also mean salvation. And so I just thought this is a 10.5.
See, for me, there's a pause here. We will fall, and so then it kind of gives you this like it's over.
Yeah.
To A-N. So it's like you know, like he becomes like all in all, like that whole idea.
Yes.
Which I can't. You know, like when you really fully understand something, you can easily explain it to even children. Yeah. Like I'm not even sure that I can like fully explain that very well. Inwardly, like I have an understanding of it, but it doesn't comport to words. You know what's another thing? When I listen to this type of music, first of all, I wish I had a friend that did that, because I feel like I could do that type of vocal style if I had a friend to do it beside me, because I think at first I feel too dumb. Yeah. So I don't put it out there.
Maybe if you like practiced it
alone somewhere. Go in the car. Anyway, yes, I know where you're going with that. We all know. Sori sucks at practicing for band practice. Okay, that, and then, oh shoot, there was one other thing I was going to say about this type of music. Oh, I don't know. Would you give it?
10.5.
It's easily a 10.5. I just think that it's probably an 11 for me. Yeah. Yeah.
That deep.
Yeah. Definitely.
Excelente. Really, really good song.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say. Okay, so for I don't want to make it too long. So like for Christians, you know, well, some Christians they like speak in tongues. It's like another language that like God gives you to talk to Him, and like when Paul talked about it in the Bible, he said like basically it's groanings that the Spirit speaks to God through groanings that can't be understood, basically. And so this type of music is that to me, like this song was.
Wow.
Because
That's deep.
he's communicating and you've
That's
got
deep.
like this kind of feeling or this understanding of the song without looking at the lyrical content. It kind of brought you somewhere and expressed something. And
Definitely
as
with the
he's
guitar
doing it,
work as
like
well.
yeah, oh absolutely. But as he's like putting out those vocals and there's that like strain sound that's in there, and you can't. Well, I mean, probably for people that are completely used to it, maybe you can completely understand without looking at the lyrics. But like for me, when I was looking at the lyrics, I could understand the words that he was saying. But like the whole like body language, all of this stuff was just communicating something. And then obviously we break down the lyrics, and it's very, very good. So definitely, it's an 11 for me. So
There you
thank
go.
you, Metlcat. I really, really liked this one.
Yeah, it was a really, really good one. We appreciate it. Vin out.
Sorry out.
Gone.